My boyfriend of 4 years left me because he said I didn't respect him like a real man. 2 months later, I found out what he really meant by that. Stay with me till the end, because what started as heartbreak turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. My name is Amara Johnson. I'm 29, living in Atlanta, and until a few months ago, I thought I was building a future with the man I loved, Evan Blake. Evan was 31, charming in public, but behind closed doors, he always made me feel like I was doing something wrong. I worked hard, had a good job at a design firm, and tried to be the kind of partner who supported his dreams. But somehow, my success always made him uncomfortable. He used to say things like, "You always have to be right," or, "You talk to me like I'm one of your employees." At first, I laughed it off, thinking he was joking. But slowly, those comments turned into arguments. He would tell me that I didn't make him feel like a real man, that I was too independent, too strong. I didn't realize then that what he wanted wasn't respect, it was control. I paid half the rent, cooked most nights, and even helped him pay off some debt when his job cut hours. I never threw it in his face. I believed that's what love was, being there through the hard times. But the more I gave, the more he took. Every time I shared an opinion, he called it disrespect. Every time I spoke up for myself, he called it attitude. One evening, after another pointless fight, he said the words that would change everything. "Amara, I can't do this anymore. You don't respect me. I need a woman who knows how to treat a man." I remember standing there, speechless, watching him pack his bag like he'd been planning it for weeks. He didn't even look sad, just relieved. I asked him if there was someone else, but he swore there wasn't. He said he just wanted peace. Then he walked out of the apartment I helped decorate and never looked back. For days, I couldn't eat or sleep. I kept replaying our conversations, wondering where I went wrong. How could someone who said he loved me make me feel so small? But somewhere inside the pain, something started to shift. I realized that I had been dimming my own light just to make him comfortable. That I was shrinking myself for someone who never saw my worth. I didn't know it yet, but losing Evan wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of my freedom. Looking back, I realize I tried so hard to be the perfect girlfriend. I did everything I thought a good partner should do. When Evan lost his job for 3 months, I carried the bills without a single complaint. I paid rent, stocked the fridge, even helped him update his resume and drove him to interviews. I told myself we were a team. But to him, my help felt like competition. Whenever I celebrated a small win at work, a compliment from my boss, a finished project, he'd twist it into something ugly. "You think you're better than me now?" he'd say, half joking, but his eyes never matched his smile. I'd laugh it off, kiss his cheek, and tell him no, of course not. But deep down, the words started to sting. He wanted me to depend on him emotionally, but he didn't want me to be strong. Whenever I stayed late at the office, he'd sulk and accuse me of choosing my job over him. I'd come home to cold silence, his shoulders tense, the TV blaring sports, just so he wouldn't have to talk to me. When I asked what was wrong, he'd sigh and say, "Nothing. I just miss how things used to be, when you had time for me." I thought that meant I wasn't giving enough, so I tried harder. I'd cook his favorite meals after 12-hour days, plan his birthday trips to surprise him, and buy little gifts when I got my paycheck. I wanted him to feel loved, but no matter what I did, it was never enough. He wanted submission, not love. I remember the night I told him I wanted to apply for an MBA program. His face changed instantly. "An MBA? For what? You already work too much. You need to know your place, Amara." His words hit like a slap. I tried to explain that I wanted to grow, that it would help our future, but he just shook his head. "You're becoming one of those women who don't need a man anymore." That night, I cried quietly in the bathroom, staring at my reflection. I barely recognized the woman looking back at me. I had started to walk on eggshells around him, afraid to make him feel small. My friends noticed the change and told me he was insecure. Kayla, my best friend, once said, "Amara, you're dimming your own light to make him shine. One day you'll burn out." But I didn't listen. I kept defending him, telling everyone he was just stressed, that he loved me deep down. Then one evening, I came home from work, and the apartment felt wrong. His clothes were gone. The drawers empty. No note, no message, just silence. I sat on the edge of the bed, numb, realizing that the man I had built up for years had packed his things and walked out of my life without a word. A week after Evan left, the silence in the apartment felt heavy. Every corner reminded me of him, the mug he used every morning, the cologne that still lingered in the air, the empty space in the closet where his clothes used to hang. I told myself he just needed time, that maybe he'd come back once he realized what he lost. But deep down, I knew he wasn't coming back. One afternoon, I stopped by a cafe near his old office. It was the same place we used to have lunch when he'd ask me to meet him during his breaks. I don't know why I went there. Maybe a part of me wanted to feel close to him one last time. While I waited for my coffee, I heard someone call my name. It was Jason, one of Evan's co-workers. He looked surprised to see me, then awkward, like he wasn't sure what to say. We made small talk for a few minutes until he said something that froze me. I was surprised to hear Evan and Sierra finally moved in together. Didn't think it'd happen this soon. My stomach dropped. "What did you say?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Jason's eyes widened. I thought you knew. They've been together for a while. Since that work retreat last summer, I think." The words hit like a punch. That retreat. The one he said was all business. The one he came back from acting distant, picking fights over nothing. I remember asking him if something was wrong, and he told me I was paranoid. Now everything made sense, the late nights, the phone always face down, the sudden change in password. I left the cafe before Jason could say another word. My hands were shaking so badly that I dropped my car keys twice. By the time I got home, the sadness I'd been carrying for a week turned into pure, burning anger. I opened my laptop and searched his social media, even though I promised myself I wouldn't. And there it was, a photo of Evan and Sierra at a dinner, smiling like they hadn't just destroyed someone else's life. The caption said, "Finally at peace." My heart cracked all over again when I recognized the background. It was my apartment. The same couch I had bought, the same curtains I picked out. He had moved her into the home I helped build. My home. I sat on the floor, staring at the screen until the tears stopped coming. That night, something in me changed. I realized I couldn't keep crying over someone who never valued me. I deleted every photo, blocked his number, and stood in front of the mirror. My reflection looked tired, but behind the exhaustion, I saw something new resolve. I whispered to myself, no more tears. No more waiting. It's time to rebuild, on my own terms. After the night I promised myself I wouldn't cry anymore, I woke up the next morning feeling empty but strangely lighter. The pain was still there, but so was a quiet determination. I decided that if I could pour so much love and effort into someone else, I could do the same for myself. So I started small. I cleaned the apartment from top to bottom, getting rid of anything that reminded me of Evan. Every shirt, every mug, every memory that carried his name, gone. For the first time in weeks, I slept through the night. When I woke up, I made a list of everything I had been putting off. Projects, goals, and dreams I once put aside for his comfort. My job at the design firm had always been my passion, but lately, I'd been just going through the motions. That week, I threw myself into work with new energy. I stayed late, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I poured my pain into creativity, and it showed. My boss, Mr. Franklin, noticed. One morning, he called me into his office and said, "Amara, I don't know what's changed, but your designs are glowing with life again." He offered me the lead position for a new corporate renovation project, something I had dreamed about for years. I smiled, thanked him, and walked out of his office with my head high. That night, I celebrated alone with a glass of wine and my favorite takeout. It wasn't loneliness anymore, it was peace. I began to treat myself better. Every Friday, I booked a massage appointment, something I used to think was too expensive. On Sundays, I'd take myself to a nice restaurant, order whatever I wanted, and sit by the window watching people pass by. I started taking weekend trips to nearby towns, exploring new places just because I could. For once, I wasn't waiting for someone to join me. I was my own company, and it felt good. Kayla, my best friend, was my biggest cheerleader through it all. She was the kind of woman who always said things straight, and I loved her for it. One night, as we sat on my balcony with candles flickering between us, she looked at me and said, "You see? You were never the problem. You just needed to remember who you were before you started shrinking for him." Her words sank deep. I realized how much I had allowed love to silence my own voice. With every passing week, I felt stronger, steadier. The sadness began to fade, replaced by a sense of control. I didn't just rebuild my life, I redesigned it. Every new choice, every step forward was proof that I didn't need Evan, or anyone else, to define my worth. I was becoming whole again, and for the first time in a long time, I felt proud of the woman staring back at me in the mirror. The day I presented my project felt like a turning point. I had spent weeks perfecting every detail, from the color palettes to the lighting designs. As I stood in front of the boardroom full of executives, I spoke with a confidence I hadn't felt in years. When I finished, the room broke into applause. My boss smiled proudly, but one pair of eyes caught my attention. A tall man in a gray suit sitting near the window. He wasn't clapping as loudly as the others, but his expression held something different. Genuine admiration. After the meeting, he approached me with an easy smile. "You're Amara Johnson, right? I'm Marcus Ellison, the architect consulting on the Ridgeway project. I just wanted to say, that was one of the best design presentations I've seen in a long time." His tone was warm, respectful, and free of the arrogance I had grown used to. We talked briefly about design concepts. Then he asked if I'd like to meet for coffee to discuss potential collaboration. I hesitated at first, unsure if it was purely professional, but something about his calm energy made me say yes. We met at a small cafe downtown 2 days later. It was quiet, with soft music and the smell of roasted beans filling the air. Marcus arrived on time, dressed neatly but casually. From the first few minutes, I noticed how different he was from Evan. He listened more than he spoke. When I shared my ideas, he didn't interrupt or correct me. He just nodded thoughtfully, asking questions that showed he truly understood my work. As we talked, I caught myself smiling, really smiling, for the first time in months. But the moment I felt that warmth, a wave of fear followed. I reminded myself that I wasn't ready. My heart was still healing from the betrayal, and I couldn't afford to fall into another trap of false affection. So when he gently suggested meeting again to brainstorm ideas, I told him honestly, "I'm not looking for anything beyond work right now." He nodded, no disappointment, no pressure. "That's perfectly fine," he said. "Let's just make something great together." His respect caught me off guard. That was all I had ever wanted, someone to respect my space, my pace, my choices. The very thing Evan had demanded from me was the thing Marcus gave naturally. Over the next few weeks, we worked closely on designs, exchanging sketches and ideas late into the evenings. Sometimes he'd make me laugh with his quiet humor. Sometimes he'd simply sit back and listen as I explained my vision. There was no competition, no tension, just understanding. One evening, as we walked out of the office together, he said, "You know, Amara, you've got a gift. And not just in design, you make people believe in themselves." I smiled, a soft warmth spreading in my chest. Maybe I wasn't ready for love yet, but I could feel it. A new beginning was quietly unfolding. It had been almost 8 months since I'd last heard Evan's voice. By then, my life had changed in quiet but powerful ways. My career was blooming, my heart was healing, and I had finally found a rhythm that felt like peace. So when my phone rang one Saturday morning and his name appeared on the screen, I froze. For a moment, I thought I was imagining it. My heart pounded, but curiosity got the better of me. I answered, "Amara." His voice came through, softer than I remembered. "It's been a while." I stayed silent, waiting for him to say why he was calling. He cleared his throat. I've been thinking about you a lot. I miss what we had. I made a mistake." My first instinct was to hang up, but a strange calm settled over me instead. I asked, "What happened to Sierra?" He hesitated, then sighed heavily. "She left. Said she couldn't handle all the pressure. Things got complicated." There was something he wasn't saying, but I didn't care enough to ask. When he suggested meeting up for coffee, I almost refused. Almost. But part of me wanted to see the man who once made me feel small, just to remind myself how far I'd come. We met the next afternoon at a cafe near the old neighborhood. When I walked in, he was already there, sitting at a corner table. His once polished look was gone. The sharp suits had been replaced by wrinkled clothes, and the confident posture I used to recognize had wilted. But the moment he saw me, he straightened up, flashing that same familiar smile, the one that used to make me melt. This time, it didn't work. "Wow," he said, looking me up and down. "You look different. Happier." "I am," I replied simply, taking a seat across from him. He started talking, about how Sierra had found out he'd lied about his savings, about how she had kicked him out, about how nothing in his life had gone right since I left. I listened quietly, sipping my coffee. He kept saying we like there was still an us. Then he leaned forward, voice trembling just slightly. "Amara, I messed up. I didn't realize what I had until I lost it. You were good to me. You always believed in me. Please, just give me another chance." I looked at him, really looked. There was still that arrogance beneath his words, but now it was cracked with desperation. I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered all those nights I cried, all those times he made me question my worth. "Evan," I said quietly, "you didn't lose me because you made a mistake. You lost me because you made a choice." His mouth opened, but no words came out. I stood up, placed my coffee cup down gently, and added, "And I made mine too." Then I turned and walked out, leaving him sitting there in the ruins he built himself. Evan called again 2 days after that meeting, saying he needed closure. I didn't know him anything, but a part of me wanted to say the things I never got to say. So I agreed to meet one last time. This time, it wasn't about curiosity, it was about clarity. I chose a quiet cafe with an open terrace, the same place I once spent nights crying over him. Now, I was walking in with steady steps and a calm heart. When he saw me, he smiled weakly. "Thanks for coming," he said, as if we were old friends catching up. I nodded and sat down, crossing my legs neatly. He started talking almost immediately, words spilling out like excuses rehearsed too many times. Things just got messy. Sierra wasn't what I thought she was. She didn't understand me like you did. I was under a lot of pressure back then. Work, bills, everything. It made me act out. I let him talk. I didn't interrupt. He went on and on, blaming everyone but himself. When he finally paused, he looked at me expectantly, waiting for sympathy that wasn't coming. "I just think we could start fresh," he said softly. "You've changed, though. You're colder now. Not the same Amara I knew." That's when I smiled, not the kind of smile that hides pain, but one that comes from peace. "You're right, Evan," I said quietly. "I've changed. I grew up." He frowned, confused. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I stopped mistaking manipulation for love," I said, my voice steady. "You used to tell me I didn't respect you, but I supported you when no one else did. I paid your rent, cooked your meals, and stood by you when you lied about your debts. And when I tried to chase my own dreams, you called it disrespect. You wanted someone to obey you, not love you." He tried to interrupt, but I raised my hand. "No, let me finish. You cheated on me, Evan. You lied, you made me doubt myself, and when I finally started standing up for who I was, you called it an attitude problem." His mouth tightened, but I didn't stop. "I gave you respect, loyalty, and love. You just didn't recognize what real respect looks like because it didn't come with silence and submission." His eyes darted away, guilt flashing across his face, but pride still held his tongue. "I just wanted to feel like a man," he muttered. "You had every chance to," I replied softly. "You just couldn't handle being with a woman who didn't need saving." He opened his mouth again, but I was done listening. I stood, leaving my half-empty cup on the table. "You wanted respect, Evan?" I said, meeting his eyes one last time. "You had it. You just didn't know what it looked like." Then I turned and walked away, feeling lighter with every step, like I was closing the final chapter of a book I'd already outgrown. Amara sat in the cafe, her fingers gently tracing the rim of her coffee cup as Evan's words poured out like a broken record. The same excuses, the same manipulative tone, except this time, they no longer reached her. He looked smaller somehow, his once perfectly styled hair unkempt, his shirt slightly wrinkled. He was talking, but all she heard was noise. When he said, "You have to understand, I was under a lot of pressure. Sierra didn't get me like you did," Amara almost laughed. The irony was suffocating. There was a time when she would have bent over backward to comfort him, to fix whatever mess he created. But that woman was gone, buried somewhere under the weight of all the times he made her feel less than enough. She glanced at her watch. He was still talking about how he'd changed, how he finally understood what respect meant. Amara looked up, her eyes steady and unreadable. "Evan," she said softly, interrupting him. "You don't have to explain." His face brightened for a brief second, until she continued, "Because I don't care anymore." The words cut through the air like glass. Evan froze, his mouth open but no sound came out. Amara rose gracefully, pulled a few bills from her wallet, and placed them neatly on the table beside her untouched drink. Her silence spoke louder than anything she could have said. As she walked toward the door, the sound of her heels echoed sharply against the tiled floor, each step a reminder that she no longer belonged to his story. Evan scrambled after her, calling her name, his voice shaking with desperation. "Amara, please. We can fix this. I made mistakes, but I love you." She didn't turn, didn't even slow down. Outside, the cool air brushed against her skin, almost like a blessing. For the first time in years, she felt light, free of the invisible chains she had once mistaken for love. 2 days later, Amara's photo appeared on the cover of Modern Visionaries, a local business magazine. The headline read, "Designing Her Destiny, Amara Brooks, the woman redefining modern architecture." Evan saw it in the waiting room of a bank, and the sight hit him like a punch. There she was, smiling, radiant, powerful. The same woman he had dismissed as too emotional, now celebrated as one of the city's top creative minds. He scrolled through social media later, seeing post after post of Amara receiving a city award for innovative leadership. Her company's logo gleamed behind her as she stood at the podium, thanking her team with poise and gratitude. That's when it sank in. The woman he'd tried to control now commanded rooms he'd never be invited into. His calls went unanswered, his messages unread. And for the first time, Evan understood what true loss felt like, not of a lover, but of a woman who had outgrown his entire world. Amara woke up to the soft glow of sunrise spilling through her floor-to-ceiling windows, painting her penthouse in gold. The city skyline stretched beneath her like a living canvas, constant, powerful, and full of stories. She stood by the glass, coffee in hand, her reflection merging with the skyline. For once, she didn't feel small. She felt infinite. Her mornings had become sacred. No chaos, no tears, just calm music, her favorite silk robe, and a quiet gratitude that hummed through her bones. She had worked for this peace, not inherited it, not borrowed it, but earned it one scar, one sleepless night, and one brave decision at a time. Her design firm, Reframe Studios, had grown faster than she ever imagined. What began as late nights sketching in her tiny apartment now occupied an entire floor in an art-filled downtown building. Her team of 10 women, architects, illustrators, and interior designers, was a vibrant mix of talent and soul. Each one had a story, a fire, and Amara made sure their voices were never silenced like hers once had been. She drove herself to work now in a sleek white electric coupe she bought outright. Every hum of the engine reminded her. Independence was the most beautiful luxury of all. No more asking permission. No more explaining her worth. Marcus had become an unexpected constant in her new life. Their first collaboration had turned into 3 more projects. He wasn't like the others. No hidden motives, no fragile ego. He spoke to her like an equal, challenged her ideas with respect, and made her laugh in the middle of long design meetings. When he sent flowers to congratulate her team on a major award, the card simply read, "Proud of what you're building, inside and out." Still, Amara was cautious. Love no longer meant losing herself. She had rebuilt her foundation from the ground up, brick by brick, with boundaries and self-worth stronger than steel. Marcus understood that. He never rushed, never demanded. He just stayed, a quiet presence that reminded her that respect didn't have to be begged for. It could be given freely. On weekends, Amara explored the world. Short trips to wine countries, hidden beaches, or mountain lodges where she could write, draw, and breathe. She learned to savor her solitude instead of fearing it. Sometimes she caught herself smiling at her reflection, not out of vanity, but out of recognition. This woman, the one with calm eyes, unshakable confidence, and dreams too big for anyone to shrink, was her. As she stood on her balcony one evening, city lights twinkling like stars reborn, Amara whispered to herself, "This is what thriving feels like." And for the first time, love didn't mean sacrifice. It meant peace. And she wasn't waiting to be chosen anymore. She was finally, beautifully, choosing herself. The night of the charity gala shimmered with elegance. Soft music, clinking glasses, and people dressed like they had no pasts to hide. Amara walked in wearing a flowing emerald gown that hugged her confidence more than her body. Cameras flashed, greetings flowed, and whispers of admiration followed her. She had become someone people wanted to know, not someone they pitied. Marcus stood beside her, his hand warm against her back, his quiet presence grounding her in a way that words never could. Together, they looked like a picture of grace and peace. 2 people who had built something honest in a world that often wasn't. As they moved through the crowd, Amara's eyes caught a familiar face across the room. It took her a moment to recognize her, Sierra. The woman Evan had left her for. She looked nothing like the perfect, composed woman from the photos Evan once flaunted online. Her smile was tight, her eyes tired, and the expensive dress couldn't hide the weight of regret that clung to her. For a second, Amara froze. Old memories flashed. Evan's words, the betrayal, the nights she cried alone. But as Sierra approached, Amara felt calm. Not anger. Not revenge. Just stillness. "Amara," Sierra said softly, her voice trembling. I didn't expect to see you here. You look amazing. Amara smiled politely. Thank you, Sierra. It's been a long time. Sierra nodded, her eyes glistening. I owe you an apology. For everything. I knew what I was doing when I got involved with Evan. I thought I was special, that I was different. But he lied to me too. And when it all fell apart, I realized what kind of person I helped destroy. The words hung in the air, heavy but honest. People moved around them, laughing, unaware of the quiet storm passing between two women who once shared the same heartbreak. Amara took a slow breath. I appreciate you saying that, she said finally. But you don't owe me anything now. We both learned in our own ways. Sierra's tears spilled. You're stronger than I ever was. Amara shook her head gently. No, I just stopped letting pain define me. They stood there for a moment. Two women, once enemies, now silent witnesses to each other's lessons. Then Amara smiled, small but genuine. Take care of yourself, Sierra. And just like that, she turned and walked back to Marcus, who was watching from a distance. He met her halfway, his expression soft, proud. As they stepped out into the cool night air, Amara felt the weight of years lift from her shoulders. Evan's chapter was over. Sierra's story was no longer hers to hold. She looked up at the city lights and whispered to herself, He left me for respect, but I found self-respect. Marcus squeezed her hand and she smiled. For the first time, she truly understood. Love wasn't about being chosen. It was about choosing yourself first and never settling for less again. Do you think Amara made the right choice by walking away and finding peace on her own, or should she have given Evan another chance to prove himself? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear them. And if stories like this speak to you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another one.